Hello, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 98, Building Your CV Through International Experiences with Dr. Nevart Galileas. Today's sponsor is brought to you by J&K Productions. Did you know that not only are they a production company for podcasts, but they are a recording company for musicians? Any musical recording needs that you may have, J&K Productions can fulfill that need. They have all the necessary equipment and expertise to record your next flute recording for college or graduate auditions, competitions, summer festivals, or a flute album. J&K Productions can record any setup imaginable, from solo flute, small chamber, flute and piano, and much more. Consider J&K Productions for your next recording project. Contact them at jkproductions.media. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. Today, my special guest is Dr. Nevart Galileas, who is a dear flute teacher of mine, and I'm so glad she's here to share her information with you all about building your CV through international experiences. Welcome, Nevart.
Welcome, Heidi. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And you're one of my favorite flutists anyway. So this is going to be fun talking to you about how to build an international CV.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The feeling is mutual, as you know, and I just can't wait for people to get to know you. Everybody's going to be so inspired, but so inspired to the point where they want to come out and study with you because you have been one of the most impactful teachers of my career.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words.
So everything is well in Greece and your family's doing well?
Yes, everything's well. My voice is a little bit, as you can hear, maybe I have this slight cold, but I'm fine and the family is good. The weather is good in Greece. And so life continues with the new year, 2020. You know, we all have great expectations for what we want to do and our plans. So I hope that we all get to, realize our goals.
So well, beautifully said. So for those of you who may not know you, could you please share with the listeners a little bit about your musical background?
Yes, I would want to say that I'm from Greece, from the city of Thessaloniki, and I graduated from the conservatory here a long time ago in 1997, and then I went off to Oberlin Conservatory in Ohio, where I studied with Michel Debord. That was my bachelor's degree. It was an amazing experience because he's a phenomenal flutist and exceptional teacher. And then I moved forward and pursued my master's of music degree at Indiana University in Bloomington, where I studied with Kate Lucas and Thomas Robertello. And that was also a very, very amazing experience. I also was the teaching assistant of my teacher there. And that's, I think, when I really realized how much I love teaching. Even though I had taught before, but I think it was really at Indiana where I felt that, of course, I love performing. That's every flutist and every musician loves that. But I really felt that I definitely have to also teach in my life. So after that, I went to the State University of New York at Stony Brook, and I studied with Carol Winsence, receiving my Doctor of Music degree. All of that was about 10 years of studying in the States, after which I returned to Greece. And since then, I've been performing as soloist, chamber musician, teaching both in Greece here and internationally. So that's pretty much a brief background of what I have done. And currently, aside from the performances, I'm teaching at the Neo Conservatory of Thessaloniki, and I'm the artistic director of the Summer Music Performance Program at ACT, the American College of Thessaloniki. And I'm also on the directing committee of the State Conservatory of Thessaloniki.
amazing background.
Thank you very much, Heidi.
Yeah, it's such a rich history that you have studying with those very pinnacle teachers, DeBose and Robertello and Winsence. I mean, I just can't imagine.
I was very fortunate many times. I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to study with these really phenomenal, both musicians and teachers. So I owe them almost everything. So yes, that needed to be said.
And I love it how humble you are about knowing that your experiences are very unique and how you were blessed in those studios. So I know a lot of people will resonate with that and appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk about your ACT Summer Music Festival that happens in July 2020.
Yes, ACT, as I mentioned before, we have the Summer Music Performance Program at the American College of Thessaloniki, which is a division of Anatolia College. It is a 10-day program. It's a quite intense program with private lessons, master classes, concerts, both student concerts, faculty concerts, lectures, and we always end with the opera production. We offer voice lessons and opera, flute, violin, cello, piano, and composition. We also have the composition competition. And basically, also at that point, I would want to say that I want to mention that I met you through the Straubinger scholarships that David and Dale give to the program every year. So the Straubinger flutes appoint scholarship to a flutist, a great flutist that plays on a Straubinger flute, and they sent the flutist to Greece to come study here for the 10-day program. That's how we met, and I'm grateful and very thankful to them for all the support. They have been so supportive. I myself play on a Straubinger gold flute. And I will always be thankful to David because he has helped me so much, especially with the way that at some point, because you understand, since I'm in Greece and when I ordered my flute, I was here and then I received it. It was great, but I felt that I wanted the head joint to be a little bit different. So he said, okay, come on over and we'll work on it together. You'll tell me what you want and I'm gonna do it. And so I did, actually. I took the plane. I flew there at Indianapolis. And he worked for 3 days straight, and he did exactly like the dream head joint for what I was asking. And so I'm very grateful.
That sounds like David, does it not?
Yes, totally.
That's so his personality and his character.
Yes, he's very giving, both him and Dale. I mean, they're dear friends to me, and very, as I said, very supportive of me and of the program, the summer program as well, because they do. This is the 6th year that the program will be running in 2020. So they have been standing by it and supporting it with the Straubinger scholarships through all this time. So it is it's a serious, effort on their part. And for me, it makes me feel very proud, obviously. So again, it's a big thank you to Straubinger Flutes.
Amazing. And I'm so glad you brought up the summer program because it segues beautifully later in 2 weeks when I put together my episode 100 on these last 4 months of my own international experiences. The very first thing I'm stating is go to these international festivals because your network will get wider, and these professors that you will be meeting at these summer festivals could potentially be references for your career. You're going to need you're going to need references for letters. You're going to need to call them for guidance and mentorship. And then when you're applying specifically, like in my case, for a collegiate full-time position, those job announcements will say international experience needed. Now, if I had not gone to that music festival 2 summers ago and met you, and fast forward, here I am doing all these job applications, and it's so competitive. If I had not had that wonderful relationship with you to say, hey, Nevart, could you help me out? And for you to set up concerts and recitals in the museum and the library, and for me to make connections with Nikos, I would not be building my CV right now towards my goal.
It is very important. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for students to know that while they're in school to maybe consider this, because it was something that was not on my radar at all. If David had not said, hey, go study with Nevart, this is going to be a great experience for you, never did I think that this international world would be opened up to me if he had not recommended it.
This is very true. I think especially mostly for people in the United States, because Europe is, further away, and it's not so easy for any flutist or musician in the States to just say, okay, I'm going to start traveling to Europe to set up concerts and master classes and everything. I think that's mostly the reason that these summer music programs and festivals exist. Apart from obviously the private lessons and all that you get from that, I think that it is about the building your future connections. You're getting into the music world as a performer, and you need to basically build connections, and it's very important. So I definitely strongly recommend young professionals, or even not young, older. We do have in the program, our program is for all ages. So we have younger kids, some very talented people that come from all over Greece to attend the program. But we also have older applicants, and it is open to all levels as well, which is something that I like. I don't necessarily see this as a program, there are, as you know, very competitive, strict programs, which are very performance oriented and a little bit, I guess, strict is the word to use. Yeah. In this case, in this program, I think I see it as just music being for everybody. So I want people to be able to attend, even if the level is, it's not, there are some amazing, as you witness yourself, some amazing musicians attending, but there are also younger kids that are, now starting, and there are also some amateur older people that do attend. My aim is to keep it open for everybody.
Very well said. So let's dive into today's topic if you'd like. And we've kind of dabbled with some of the benefits of international experiences for building our CVs. But why do you think it's important for a flutist to consider adding those experiences to their resume?
Okay, that is the topic. And I think it's very important to address the reasons why people should add the international experience in their CVs. The way I see it is that for all musicians, this is not only for flutists, but obviously we're talking about flutists right now. However, at this point, if you look back, you'll see a huge difference in the way that things happened like 10 or 20 years ago, where it was people would graduate with maybe a bachelor's degree and get a master's, but not necessarily. And they still could, if obviously they were good performers, and they could end up getting a university job with those qualifications. That is something that is no way true anymore. And I mean, in some ways, it makes, life a little bbit more difficult because the competition is so strong. Almost everybody graduates with a doctorate degree. I mean, if you see the percentages of how many people have DMAs now compared to 10 years ago, it's crazy. And I think for me, that's one of the major reasons why people have to, do the extra mile. You have to have good educational background, obviously, but you need to add something on top of that. So the international career, obviously, the national career is important as well for people in the U.S. As you have, traveled around and given master classes at universities, at schools, and also performed in a lot of places. That is also very, very extremely important. And that is probably the first step that somebody should do. But on top of that, you should try with, again, as we said, with the connections that each of us build throughout their career, we should all try to get this international experience, go to different countries, have master classes, meet people, have performances in whatever way. I mean, there are people that are prefer to be soloists with orchestra. That's fantastic. If you can collaborate with orchestras all over the world, that also is a phenomenal experience. You can be a chamber musician and go around with your chamber music group and have your concerts, or with recitals, solo, or flute and piano, or some combination. But you must, I think it's very essential that you're out there. Also because it's such a globalized music world nowadays. I mean, it's like we're somehow all connected. I mean, even if you're at the other end of the world, there is obviously it's the social networks help with that. I mean, I can talk to you at any point, and 10 or 20 years ago, people were more isolated wherever they were. So all this has brought people closer. So we need to take advantage of that, and we need to have this experience. And also talking about job applications, as we discussed this with you as well at some point. They do, I mean, if you're applying for a job at a university level, they do ask for this international career. And I think aside from everything else that we've said, it's also important to get to know students from different parts of the world. And this way you can help them more because you know their culture and where they come from, and you feel closer to them and you know how to approach. There are so many different, cultures, and people do things differently in one country and completely the opposite in another. So it's important to know, to get to know this. This experience is valuable, and it can make a teacher just much more helpful to the students.
No, I love it. And just thinking about cultural differences, like even for me, I picked up on it a little bit in the summer of 2018, but not like I did this time, because this time around I was with you for 3 months. I mean, there was just more time.
And that was just fantastic.
Yeah. I loved it. I want to go back. But just even how, like, we were talking about, when we would meet and for how long, and, even setting up rehearsals with Nikos, and how, like, culturally I was approaching some of those emails to Nikos, the pianist, in a very American way. And you were saying, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you didn't do that, because you're approaching it differently. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the fact that I'm brought up in a different culture. And so, like, later when I was talking to George, being the president of the conservatory, in the car ride home from your house, he was talking about his experiences at the Paris Conservatory. And he was talking about lessons. And he said, the teacher's job is to teach until the lesson is taught thoroughly and he feels satisfied. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, your lesson may be scheduled at 11 a.m., but he said, you just know as a student to wait out in the hallway, to listen to the other students, and your lesson may start at 1 p.m. instead of the 11 a.m. scheduled time.
Exactly.
And he said, the lessons would just go on until the teacher felt satisfied. And there was no time limit. And I felt the same way with you. You were so generous with time, and maybe that same culture. In my American mind, I was just like, okay, like an American flute lesson is 1 hour. That's what you get. That's what you pay for. And doors closed, you're out. And here you are spending hours with me. And I'm just like, okay. And same thing with Nikos. He didn't like stop me at a rehearsal and say, okay, the hour's done. We just kept going. And and so I'm glad you brought that up, because you don't know that until you actually go through with that experience.
Yes, and that's a fantastic example, what you said right now, about getting to know how things work in different countries. So you'll have all the experience and be able to communicate better. And you won't be shocked if, for example, you go in for 1 hour and you end up leaving in 3 hours. I mean, that's something that you can gain only, nobody can tell you about it. And I mean, they can, obviously. Now, George told you about Paris and France and how things work there. And that is also experience, hearing from other people. But in some things, you really need to experience it yourself to be able to get the idea better.
I agree. So before we dive into your international career just a little bit more, I'm curious. You have a very strong musical family background. So with that foundation laid out beautifully, what lessons have you learned from your family members, and what lessons have you learned throughout your international career that you would like to share with the listeners?
Okay, well, I have to say I feel very fortunate that I'm coming from a musical family, and that has taught me a lot, obviously. My father, Nevart Galileas, was a violinist and conductor. He was the concertmaster of the State Orchestra of Thessaloniki for more than 30 years and became the director of the same orchestra, as well as the founder of the Thessaloniki Municipality Orchestra and the Municipality Conservatories. So he was a very major music figure in Greece. Unfortunately, he passed away a long time ago, 20 years this year. So it's difficult not having such a strong inspiration with you, when you're used to having all that music in the house ever since I can remember. And my mother, Diri, is a pianist, and my brother, Christos Galileas, took after my brother, and so he's a violinist, an excellent violinist, and currently holds the position of associate professor of violin at Georgia State University in Atlanta. And he has been there for a long time now, over 10 years. We also together, as I think I mentioned, he's the executive director, and I'm the artistic director of our summer music performance program at Anatolia College. So even though in the year he's in the States and I am in Greece, in the summertime we have this great opportunity to work together and also have fun together. So that's the way we sort of meet up and just play music together and organize this summer program.
Your brother is lovely. He is so kind and giving, and
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate his friendship too.
Oh, thank you, Heidi.
So we've talked a lot about, job applications and reaching out to music festivals and starting that networking base. Are there any last thoughts or suggestions that you would like to offer the listeners?
I would want to offer, I guess, as a thought that I think aside from everything that we said, that it's an amazing experience to teach and perform in different parts of the world and get acquainted with the different cultures, which does actually make you a rounder and I guess maybe in some ways a more mature teacher and professor. At the same time, I think people should also always keep in mind that it's a two-way street between the teacher and the student. I think if we always is now talking as a teacher, if we keep an open mind that we can actually learn from our students as well. And this might sound funny being said like this, but it's always, I don't know, I want to ask you if you feel the same when you teach. Don't you feel that you're getting something out of your teaching as well, and you're becoming the student as well at that when you're asking a student to rephrase and play something in a certain way with more direction, with more tension, with more, louder. Suddenly it feels to me that we also as teachers see through the eyes of the student. And that's also an amazing experience. And that is even greater when you get to know different people, students from different parts of the world, because they receive things differently. And so it's so you get to see everything the way that they receiving all of your information and your teaching.
No, I couldn't agree more. That's well said. And the reason I say that too is there's many examples I could give, but one of the examples is just from our relationship. And that's one thing I appreciate about how you approach me as a student with so much respect. And when you would say a certain thing in a lesson, I would tell you right then and there and say, Nevart, as a teacher, say that again for a student, because that really resonated with me. And it was like a collaboration. It was like, okay, exactly. I'm going to step out just for a second. And granted, of course, we were two adults and two professionals, and so that relationship lent itself to be that way. You can't necessarily have, a 7-year-old kid.
No, definitely.
Right, because they don't have the experience. But right then and there, I would say, Nevart, oh my gosh, if you can remember, do that again, because that could really help another student.
Exactly.
But for those younger students, I agree completely. Like when I was in Bucharest and when I was in Sofia, after the master classes, these 16-year-old girls who played beautifully, like Chaminade and Burton and Hugh, they would say afterwards, "Thank you, I learned so much." And I told them, I kid you not to, put a spotlight on me, but just because I want others to feel humbled by the experience too, I would say right then and there, "No, thank you. You taught me something."
It's very important, and it's very true. It's really, I think that's a major point of teaching, something that most of teachers realize it and know this, but it's just always, to me, it's every time I experience it, it's a wonderful, a very fulfilling, just experience.
And then to bring it full circle, you're right when you said different students learn in different ways, right? But at the international level, when you're coming into a culture that you don't know, you do learn in a different way to adapt to what they hear. Because
exactly.
And that's where the international thing just was like, whoa. And it was such a profound experience for me, because even like studying with you, and you would say things with so much description, like your words were descriptive and very colorful, almost like poetry. And when I worked with Nikos too, he was the same way. And it kind of got me wondering, like, is that because Greek, you're trilingual, which is brilliant. You learn, Greek and Armenian and English. And so I'm curious, like, if it's a translation thing where to you in Greek, you would say, "Oh, well, that note is fiery red, like a red rose." And if that's just how Greeks talk to describe the music. Do you see what I'm saying? And then
yes, I do see. And I think you're very right about this. I think it also has to do with, again, the different cultures, the different languages, all of that. So it becomes a very complex issue, I guess, teaching at an international level, also putting all these elements in there. And as we say for the Italians, which haven't, even when you hear them talk, they have this like very kind of singing accent, the way they talk. So, and Greeks have a little bit of that as well. It's like it's not the accents, but I guess the tone goes kind of up and down, and it's more colorful, you could say, or with more tension at some points. And I think that then you see a Greek teacher, exactly as you pointed out, is trying to explain a musical phrase through what they're used to from their everyday experience and the use of their language. So it is a very interesting, all of these things are extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when like light bulbs would go off for me. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And then the connections were made. So from a student's perspective, if you are a student thinking about an international music festival, look forward to that experience, because like you said earlier, I can tell you about it, but unless you experience it, it's a whole new level.
Exactly. That's it. As we said, it is something you can tell people about it, and that also helps. It's, as you say, a different level if you're experiencing it yourself, and it makes you more, I think, more fulfilled as a person and as a teacher, as a musician. And it just, at the end of the day, I think musicians need to be in touch with the world. Music is an international language. And that's another thing that we should add in these and mention it here, that we have this privilege to be part of the music world, where we don't necessarily need to know different languages, and we still can communicate just through the music. And even if a student doesn't speak English, and you're, I don't know, in China or anywhere, in Greece, in anywhere, and you just try to explain through your body language and through obviously the music and what you aim for, you can still get across and communicate that to the student. And that's a huge privilege that I think only musicians have. So because of that, we really need to get out there and have this international experience, because we don't have the language barrier. And nowadays, everybody, you can find, people speak some English, as you saw here in Greece, they actually speak pretty well. And that helps all, obviously. But at the same time, even if they didn't speak that well, I think, wouldn't you feel when you taught the students at the conservatory that they could understand you just because you were explaining with your phrases and, with different communication means aside from the language, they still get your point and they still imitate your phrasing and whatever you're asking them to do. So this is an advantage we as musicians should use.
I love it. I have goosebumps.
I'm so happy about that.
But it's so true. Like even going down to the market, and I come across like the cashier or the butcher who doesn't understand English. 9 times out of 10, it was body language and it was gestures and it was pictures. And I had to find another way to communicate. And you said that so well, like music is our tool to communicate ideas. And so if English is not the common ground, well, good. Don't let it hold you back. That's actually a benefit because now you have to get creative.
And exactly make your point through other, through, as you said, with the body language and as we said, with playing and trying to make the student understand what you're talking about without them knowing the language. So that is something, whenever it happens and you feel like you're communicating and connecting with people only through music and not really with the language, that's also a very different experience that makes you feel, as we said, that music just is connecting all of us in a very warm way, a heart, like a warm international global world that we're in, and we're fortunate to be in this profession.
Oh, I love it. And you know how much I adore you, and I thank you so much for your time.
Likewise.
Oh, you're so
and
sweet.
I wish you were here. It has been it was so great to have you here. And aside from everything that we did, the professional and that part, even, the element as friends and colleagues, the discussions about music and life in general, and all, I really miss all of that. And it was so great to have you here. And I hope we do have you with us again soon, either, for concerts or master classes or in any way.
Oh, you're too kind. Well, I so thank you for your time, talents, and expertise and taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge with the listeners. We so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'm very thankful that you invited me, that we could share this, our views on all these topics.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Today's sponsor is brought to you by J&K Productions. Did you know that not only are they a production company for podcasts, but they are a recording company for musicians? Any musical recording needs that you may have, J&K Productions can fulfill that need. They have all the necessary equipment and expertise to record your next flute recording for college or graduate auditions, competitions, summer festivals, or a flute album. J&K Productions can record any setup imaginable, from solo flute, small chamber, flute and piano, and much more. Consider J&K Productions for your next recording project. Contact them at jkproductions.media. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. For more information, please visit HeidiKBegay.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review in the iTunes store. Let's talk about flute.